How can an online gambling company or FX firm get a bank account? That's going to be the topic of today's video. Okay, everyone, if you're a high net wealth individual in particular or an expat, go over to adamfayed.com and see how I can help you. Now, what's interesting is a lot of people aren't aware that in certain industries it's very hard to get a bank account these days. And one question I get asked a lot by people online is, look, I'm a business owner. It could be an FX owner, it could be a cryptocurrency exchange, or it could be something like somebody who's doing online gambling or something like that. All those kind of services are considered high risk because of international anti-money laundering requirements. Financial services as well, to a lesser extent, but obviously financial services is considered more vanilla compared to something like online gambling. So unless you're a big company in these areas, it can be very hard to get a bank account. So what have I found from talking to people, even though I'm personally not in this industry, are the best ways of actually getting a bank account in these industries? So number one, I would say find a specialist provider. So I've dealt with one or two people who have helped my clients who are in this industry, and a specialist provider whose only job is to basically help people in high risk industries get bank accounts. They can actually open up some doors, because as a business owner, there's only so many banks you can actually approach. You can, at the end of the day, cold call or cold email, should I say, thousands of banks around the world, but probably a specialist provider is going to know instantly, okay, this country is more liberal than that country, or this bank is going to open up a bank account more than this bank. So I would say use a provider who's specialized in this niche. And number two, I would say onshore rather than offshore in some cases. So for example, if you want to set up a company in the UK, even if you're not a British person, even if you're a non-resident, you can do it very easily. And when it comes to getting a bank account, it is true that if you're a non-resident in the UK, it's a bit harder than if you're a resident. But the funny thing is, these days, unlike what the media say, if you do everything onshore and transparently, often there are less questions asked. Obviously, you need to do the due diligence. You need to show that your business is legitimate, and quite rightly so, but there are fewer questions asked compared to the offshore banks. Many offshore banks now, by offshore, I mean often the typical offshore jurisdictions, because there's more of a spotlight on them. They just have a policy when it comes to some industries that we're not going to give a bank account to somebody in this industry or that industry or that industry. Now, don't get me wrong, that's the case with banks all around the world. Same in the UK or the US, onshore banks, some of them will just not touch online gambling or FX or cryptocurrency exchanges unless it's a big firm with decent revenues and they can really see this is a legitimate firm. But still, actually, if you try to go for the onshore, say UK or US route or something like that, there are probably more banks that will accept you compared to if you try to go to the offshore route. How can I help you? In two ways. First of all, are you an expat, a high net wealth individual, or just somebody who lives in a part of the world where it's difficult to get access to quality investment solutions? In which case, go onto my website on adamfayed.com and find out more. If you don't fit into any of those categories, then in which case there's a range of free material on my website, on this YouTube channel, and indeed on my Quora, where I get over 200 or have received over 231 million views in the last few years. And finally, if you want to actually read my thoughts in more detail, go onto Amazon and find my book on there.